Hello, my friends. This is Rick here, and I have a bit of an update for the channel. So, I have been, other than just incredibly busy with a bunch of other projects and work and just trying to survive. Um, the update I have is that I have been also battling with sound quality issues, video quality issues, because I got a new camera and it doesn't record the way I want it to. And the microphone it came with is actually not even as good as the one I had been using. Actually, to be fair, the one I had been using apparently isn't even as good as my phone's basic microphone. So, I'm going to stick with that. And to save space on my hard drive and to try to, I guess, make this whole process a lot simpler because I don't have to do a whole lot of setup when I just do a voice recording. Um, I'm just going to stick with just the voice recordings. And if I get to a point where I can do better video quality and better sound quality, I may resume that. But for now, we're going to stick with just the voice. So far, just after doing a little bit of editing, I think it already sounds a lot better. So, I hope you still all decide to sit with me and listen as I read stories to you. And yeah, at some point, I think that's enough. But yeah, so thank you for your support and thank you for your understanding. You are all amazing, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Rick Reads. Today we'll be continuing The Demon with Chapter 21. Dante and Stacy finally got out of bed late the next morning. Dante dressed unenthusiastically while Stacy pulled on a robe. I should head back to the inn and pay up for the rest of the month, Dante said, mostly to himself. Stacy smiled at him and shook her head. My offer still stands, you know, she replied. That may be, but I would feel a little out of place if we weren't married first. Besides, I wanted to get a bigger place once we're wed. You don't like it here? She asked teasingly. Dante smiled, pulling his shirt over his head. You know I do. One bedroom is fine for just us, but we'll need more rooms once we have children. He and Stacy had discussed the possibility of children months ago, when she thought she may have been pregnant. She had been worried his demonic physiology would have complicated things, but was assured by Dante when he told her his mother had been a human. Stacy nodded, conceding the point. But until then? An inn and a hollowed-out submarine? What? Dante asked, feigning offense while he strapped on his father's armor. Sure, she's a bit rusted in places, but she's got electricity and running water. Not to forget the fact that it's beachfront property. Stacy grinned and rolled her eyes, shaking her head. Dante had been firm in his position on moving in with her. He had said that it was something his parents had taught him at an early age. Also, there's something I want to talk to you about when I get back from the inn, Dante stated. Oh? What about? Something potentially exciting, was all Dante would offer. He buckled his sword belt and adjusted his armor, then gave Stacy a kiss. I'll tell you when I get back. Stacy smiled at him and patted his shoulder. Have fun then, dear. Say hello to Helgen for me. Dante nodded and left the house. He made his way back to the inn and strode directly to the bar. Helgen was there, as always, and nodded a friendly greeting to the demon. Morning, Dante, the vampire said. Good morning, Helgen, Dante replied. Just come from Stacy's, I take it? Dante nodded, smiling. She says hello. Helgen nodded. Yeah, she does that from time to time. They shared a chuckle, each enjoying the friendly banter. So, what brings you in, looking so happy? Helgen inquired. Do I look pleased? Dante japed. Well, I suppose I should. I do have some good news. Don't tease me, boy. Out with it. Oh, Stacy and I are engaged, Dante grinned. Helgen smiled, slapping Dante on the shoulder. Congrats, my friend. Let us drink to the happy occasion, then. He pulled a bottle of wine from under the counter and placed it on the bar, along with 2 glasses. They toasted and drank, emptying the bottle within minutes. Good to know my girl found a good man. Demon, Helgen laughed. Dante grinned, pleased to know the bartender approved. So, I hate to ask now, but do you have my payment? Helgen asked moments later, still smiling. Rent's about due, you know. Dante produced a pouch of coins and laid it on the bar. Here it is, hard earned and not conjured. Helgen grinned and laughed. You had me going for a while when you did that. Almost threw you out on principle. Dante took the joke for what it was and started to turn for the door. Hold on a moment, would you? Helgen asked politely. I have something here for you. Arrived a couple days ago. Dante returned to the bar while Helgen sifted through some envelopes. He pulled one out of the stack and handed it to Dante, saying, The courier didn't know where you'd be, so I had him leave it with me. Thanks, Dante said, turning the envelope over in his hands. The writing on the front addressed to him was unfamiliar, but it looked feminine. There was no return address either. He tore open the flap and pulled out the letter. His lips moved in silence as he read. Dante, I hope this letter finds you. I wrote to you to inform you that my grandfather, Gerard, is very ill and may not make it to the next month. He fell ill after I came back from my journey, and I have been his caretaker ever since. I will leave him in the care of my mother and come to Bethlehem soon to ask you to come home in person, but in case I cannot find you, this letter must suffice. Please, hurry. Grandfather has been asking for you lately. He needs his best friend. Signed, Aaron. Dante's fingers numbly refolded the letter, and he slumped down on a stool at the bar. He knew this day would come. Had feared it for years, even. Gerard was dying. Grievous wounds and broken bones, those Dante could heal. But old age was far crueler. He rested his head in his hand and sighed. Gerard was the last of his old friends, and he had been the best of them all. No one knew Dante better than he did. Stacy came close, but Gerard had known Dante for far longer, had helped the demon through nearly every bout of depression, murderous rage, and crippling defeat. The old man, though younger than Dante, was much wiser than the demon could ever hope to be. And now he was dying. Helgen, sensing the weight of Dante's feelings, gave the demon some space. He slid a bottle of Dante's favorite drink to him and disappeared to the kitchen. Absently, Dante took the bottle and left the inn. By the time he reached Stacy's home, the bottle had been drained and lay shattered several blocks away. He knocked on the door and leaned heavily on the frame. A moment later, Stacy opened the door, a smile on her beautiful face. You're back! Well, that was... she began. Her smile faded when she noticed the drawn look on Dante's face. What's wrong, Dante? She asked, worried. He slipped past her, making for the kitchen. He slumped into a chair and laid his head in his hand. Stacy rushed in, knelt in front of him. Honey, what's the matter? Then she saw the letter firmly clutched in his other hand. Gingerly, she took it and opened it. Her eyes passed over the handwriting, and her worried visage turned to horror. Oh, no. Dante, this is Gerard Sykes, isn't it? Dante nodded slowly, tears rimming his eyes. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. She reached up to put her hand gently on his cheek, and he leaned into her comforting palm. Stacy pulled him to kneel on the floor with her as she gripped him in a tight hug. Her arms wrapped around him, holding him up. She felt the wetness on her shoulder, and Dante's shoulder began to bob up and down. He wept on her shoulder for several minutes, gripping her dress in white-knuckled fists. His sobs broke her heart, and she cried with him, sharing his pain. She had never met the man, but Dante had regaled her with tales of their adventures together when they were young. She knew of the deep bond the two men had shared over the decades, and almost felt as if she had known Gerard herself. Dante's pain was also her pain, and she could not bear to see her love hurting like this. When Dante finally pulled himself off of her shoulder, he looked into her eyes, his own puffy, bloodshot eyes. I have to go home, he sighed. Stacy nodded in understanding. They stood together, and she wrapped him in another hug, squeezing tight. I'll go with you, she offered. Dante held her at arm's length and shook his head. No, you don't have a substitute for your students, and I have to travel quickly. You're needed here. I'll be back as soon as I'm able. But... No, love, Dante interrupted. I'll need to pass through a dangerous area to get there as quickly as I have to. I don't want to put you in harm's way. Stacy reluctantly nodded, unwilling to let him go alone, but knowing that he was right. She was no fighter, and would only be a liability to him on the road. She had never traveled outside of Bethlehem and was raised in a schoolhouse all her life before her parents had died. She gently kissed his lips and said,
Be safe, my love. I'll be here for you when you get back. Dante smiled weakly and gave her one last hug before heading back to the inn. Helgen kept a wary eye on Dante as the demon walked back into the inn and up to the bar. Anything I can help you with, Dante? He asked gently. I'll be leaving in the morning, Dante muttered. Keep my room locked until I return. He placed another pouch of coins onto the bar and slid them to Helgen. This is for next month in case I don't come back by then. If you don't mind my asking what's going on, the vampire asked, taking the payment and pocketing it. He slid another bottle to Dante. An old friend, Dante muttered, pulling the stopper off the bottle. He offered a few coins to Helgen, who waved them away. It's on the house, friend, to help you sleep. This friend of yours, is he mortal? Dante nodded, taking a long pull from the bottle. Helgen winced. Terrible thing, mortality. Lost a lot of loved ones to it myself. Dante wasn't listening. He simply kept drinking. He slid empty bottle after empty bottle away, drinking away his sorrow for hours. Finally, in the early evening, he turned on his stool to go to his room, just in time to see Erin walk through the inn doors. She walked with more confidence than Dante remembered, and carried her short sword with much more comfort than she had the last time they were together. Even her clothes seemed to show more use. She spotted Dante and walked up to him, a grim look on her face. Long time no see, Dante stated flatly, his words slurring slightly. Erin nodded. I wish I came on happier circumstances. I take it you received my letter? Dante nodded. Yes, I did. Get a room for the night. We leave in the morning. With that, he went upstairs to his own room and turned in for the night, half falling asleep, half passing out. Erin and Helgen traded looks, and the woman rolled her eyes. She had hoped for a warmer greeting, even under the circumstances, but felt disappointed instead. 3 years of wishing he was at her side, and this was her greeting. Mutual friend? Helgen asked, removing the dozen wine bottles from the bar. Erin turned to him, confused for a moment. Realization of what he meant dawned on her, and she nodded gravely. My grandfather, actually, she replied. Helgen motioned for her to have a seat, and produced a bottle of wine and a small glass. Its label was white, with a black border, and the liquid came out crimson. Its fruity aroma wafted Erin's nose. Helgen pushed the glass to her and shook his head. Never easy losing a loved one, he said. Erin took a sip of the sweet wine and nodded in agreement. Still, man came in here this morning full of life. Terrible to see a man with such happy news get wind of such an awful thing. All on the same day, too. Helgen shook his head, feeling pity for his friend. What was the good news? Erin asked in curiosity. He's to be wed. To one of my best dancers, even. Erin nearly dropped her glass. She knew that Dante had stayed to pursue a woman, but had no idea things were so serious. Her thoughts went back to 3 years ago, trying to remember the woman Dante had met that had affected him so much. You mean Stacy, right? She asked. Helgen nodded. They've been together a while now. I'm glad to see them so in love. She was so lonely without a man, though she never would have admitted it. She was so alone until he showed up. Erin stared into her drink for a few minutes, silently contemplating. She felt jealous, though she did not want to be as childish as that. Dante was a grown man and could marry whoever he wished. She hadn't known him long enough to know the man beneath the outside, so why was she so unhappy about him marrying some other woman? Best turn in for the night, miss, Helgen mentioned. Even hungover, Dante gets out of bed earlier than most around here. Also, don't worry about the payment. One night's stay is on the house for a friend of a friend in such torment. Erin nodded her thanks and went upstairs to find a suitable room near Dante's. By the time Erin woke, Dante was already on his way out of town. She had to run to catch up with him, and when she did, she found him a bitter, surly, angry mess. She remained silent, walking behind him for several hours. They had left the main road early on, approaching a dark and foreboding forest. The trees' canopies were so thick that little to no sunlight filtered through, leaving the dense forest swathed in shadow throughout the day. By nightfall, they entered the woods, darkened more so by the lack of daylight. Erin kept close to Dante, hand on her short sword. How small the weapon seemed in this place, especially when compared to the power of her companion. However, even in the darkness, Dante seemed to radiate an even darker aura that sapped what little light there was. He looked more at home in the ominous woods than in the small town. Erin felt the same fear she had 3 years ago when he killed that militiaman. But she was a stronger woman now, honed by her trials throughout her journey around the world. She had battled vampires and werewolves, slain monstrous spiders and snakes, conversed with a dragon. But even with all that in mind, this one lone demon still frightened her more than anything could. Still, she kept close, knowing that she was safer nearer to him than from afar. "Do you know what's in these woods?" Dante asked suddenly, startling Erin. The forest was so silent that his words seemed deafening. Erin swallowed her fear and replied, "No, I don't. I've never been in this place." Dante's shoulders rose and fell with a heavy sigh. "This place is the home to a being that no mortal alive today has ever seen." "What is it?" Erin asked. "A hellhound," Dante replied. "A beast of hell left here from the war. It doesn't feed on flesh, but that doesn't mean it won't rip you to shreds. It feeds on souls and fear as if they were tangible things. Don't let it know you're afraid and you might survive." Erin gulped. She had read about hellhounds along her journey, but had written them off as horror stories told around the campfire. As much as she wanted to see one for herself, she knew that it would be far safer to avoid such a sight. She would stick close to Dante and follow his lead through the woods. As much as she feared him, she did trust him. And she knew that going through the woods would lead to Manhattan much faster than along the road around them. The two travelers walked for hours into the night, Erin ignoring the fatigue that washed over her. She walked through the stiffness in her tired legs and forced her weary eyes to focus on the path ahead. She had been through worse than lack of sleep. Dante walked on, undaunted by the darkness or fatigue. He was driven by a much more important purpose. His hand remained firmly gripped on his sword, but he walked without fear. Fear was what drew the beast. They walked on until morning and made camp so Erin could rest. She slept for a few hours and woke ready to resume their pace. On they marched through the rest of that morning and into the afternoon, wary of any sign of the hellhound who made the forest its lair. Erin trudged along as silently as possible and began to feel cold. As she kept walking, goosebumps rose on her flesh, and her breath came out in a pale fog. "Dante?" she asked, hoping he had an explanation for such odd temperatures in the middle of summer. When she received no response, Erin looked up, noticing for the first time in the last half hour that she was no longer walking behind him. "Dante?" Her hushed tone seemed to echo into the darkness, and it was then that she realized what had made the woods feel so wrong to her. There were no other sounds around her. Ever since they had entered the forest, Erin had felt the silence weighing on her without her noticing. No birds sang, no crickets chirped, nothing. There was absolute silence all around her, other than her labored, fearful breathing. Her heart pounded in her ears and her breath came out in ragged gasps. "Dante?" she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. She turned to and fro, hoping and wishing she could catch a glimpse of the demon, but the darkness made that impossible. The overbearing silence drove her to her knees and she wanted to scream. She had opened her mouth to do so, but was immediately silenced by a completely different and much more terrifying sound. Erin held her breath, felt her heart skip several beats, and she listened, fear gripping her like a clawed hand. She heard the distinct sound of a hound growling. A leaf crunched almost imperceptibly behind her, and she felt a blast of warm air on the back of her neck. And that, my friends, was chapter 21 of The Demon. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a wonderful day.